Though Japan, China, and South Korea all faced different conflicts such as warring and revolutions, these conflicts ultimately resulted in an improvement in the government and industry of each country.
Revolutions and movements. All three countries changed their governments into a globalized economy. But Korea switched from communism to another form of government, while Japan also became a free market society. But China converted to both a free market society like Japan and came from a communist government like South Korea. The fall of the Qing dynasty helped lead China out of 3,000 years of dynastic government, but it led to the nationalists taking over the government. The economy didn't start to improve until the Chinese Civil War between the nationalists and the communists. The communists won the war, putting Mao Zedong in power, which at the time was bad, but in the long run had a positive effect on the growth of China's infrastructure, which we will discuss later. When Mao died, Deng Xiaoping came into power and shifted China away from a communist government into a free market and global trade economy. Japan gained power during multiple wars, but improved its economy independently. The Meiji Restoration starts to industrialize and globalize the economy, like China had, and starts to re-centralize the government away from an empire and start to build a constitution with an elected parliament. This was where Japan started to improve its economy and gain power in East Asia through foreign affairs. The Korean War was very beneficial to South Korea because it converted from communism, again like China had, to a democratic government. This also helped because after South Korea became its own country, it began to globalize its economy, just like Japan and China had. Also, all three countries started to gain infrastructure within their economies too. China started to gain its infrastructure during the Great Leap. Though it is seen as negative because of the starvation, it did gain lots of machinery. Japan gained most of its infrastructure from Japanese families who created monopolies and other companies. Korea gained its infrastructure through foreign influences, which we will touch up on later.
After the U.S. bombs Japan in World War II, leading them to surrender, the Supreme Command of Allied powers works to reform Japan by writing a new constitution that was meant to improve the economy by changing it to a free market capitalist system. They introduced land reform policies in order to benefit tenant farmers and downgraded the emperor to just a figurehead, which gave much more power to the people of Japan. These changes forced Japan to follow a different form of government that ultimately created a much better economic system. In China, the loss of the Sino-Japanese War meant that dominance in East Asia shifted to Japan rather than China, and China lost control of Korea. This was another blow to the Qing dynasty, which weakened their economy and brought them another step closer to being overthrown when Sun Yat-sen comes to power. In the end, this benefited China by helping to bring an end to 3,000 years of dynastic rule. The Sino-Japanese War of 1894 to 1895 resulted in Japan becoming the dominant power in Korea by the beginning of the 20th century. Japan forced Korea to learn Japanese history, speak their language, do forced labor, and essentially turned Korea into a puppet government. Korea remained under Japanese control until after World War II, when the Allied powers divided Korea into North and South along the 38th parallel. The North was communist and backed by the Soviet Union, while the South was anti-communist and backed by the U.S. This war ended in an armistice, or time of peace, and has been in one sense. The support from the U.S. has helped Korea develop more infrastructure and become one of the Asian tigers with a rapidly improving economy.
In conclusion, we believe South Korea was influenced by Japan, China, and the United States because it converted from a puppet government of China and Japan to its own democratic economy, gaining infrastructure from its American support because of their democratic ways, and becoming one of the Asian tigers because of its rapidly growing economy in the 20th century.
Created using Powtoon.